Hi, good morning, everyone, and thank you all for joining us today. I am Eliza, your host, and the Training and Certification Director here at DASA. And broaching our topic today, I would like to introduce you to our speaker, Irfan Sharif. Irfan is currently the Research Director at DASA, where Irfan works with organizations and experts from all walks of life, be it management or be it technology. What Irfan does is Irfan provides guidance on the agile and DevOps ways of working through blogs, enterprise leadership forums, white papers, guidance products, and these help organizations deliver software powered products at speed and scale to accelerate digital transformations. Next slide, please, Irfan.
All right. And thank you, Eliza, for that flattering introduction. Excited to be here.
Thank you. Would you like to tell a little about yourself, Irfan, so the
Certainly,
audience can?
just building on Eliza's comments there, I bring a lot of in the field experience in agile and DevOps transformation. I have straddled the previous world when uh, products and projects were delivered through waterfall means. And as technology has evolved and as organizational culture has evolved, and we are right bang in the middle of the digital age, I have embraced agile and DevOps ways of working. I'm excited about the possibilities this age offers, and I want to share those possibilities and how you can uh, how we can work on seizing some of the opportunities of the digital age and avoiding some of its disruptive threats. So that's a little bit about me. And Eliza, we do we want to move on to the next slide?
Yes, please. So I am sure that a lot of people in this event today already know about DASA. But for those of you who are joining us for the very first time, welcome. Next slide, please, Irfan. DASA is an open source association that has built a competence model and certification scheme for DevOps training and certifications. Now, what's different about, you might ask me, what is different about DASA, right? All of the innovators that have actually built their companies into providing digital business models, they have been successful because they've changed the way they organize their IT teams. What they've done is they've created cross functional teams made up of individuals with T shaped profiles. And Irfan probably will talk a little bit more about that at a later point of time. But T shaped profiles mean that they can actually do more than one specialty. And at a time, those teams, they own these products and services, and they're responsible for these products from concept to grave. Now, in order for these folks to be successful, of course, they need to obtain the skills and knowledge areas. And these skills and knowledge areas are what the DASA training and certification program is aligned to. Now, DASA, DevOps Agile Skills Association, we were founded back in 2016. We provide a certification scheme, professional exams, a set of tools, thought leadership to support organizations in building high performing teams. We also provide an open, global, member driven community for DevOps and agile skills development. Next slide, please. So, talking about the agenda today, I'm not going to take you through the whole agenda, but today, what we will be discussing is one of the most essential topics on everyone's mind: how to become a transformational leader. Now, this question arises not only in workplaces, it kind of also manifests into the minds of people who aren't yet leaders, but they're aspiring to be one someday. So it doesn't really matter if you're leading an IT team, you're leading an ops team, sales team, DevOps team, or maybe you're just working in one. We all think of it, we all want to be it, and we all want to be leaders, right? So today's agenda that you can see on your screen, it's an overview from the topics of the DASA DevOps Leader course. It's one of our courses from the leadership programs. Now, these topics are a part of a very robust 8-week program. That program is offered by DASA for existing and aspiring leaders. You all already know this, and you are probably already a leader and you would understand this, that leaders don't really create followers, do they? What they do is they create more leaders. And DASA DevOps Leader Course aims at just that. Next slide, please. So before I hand it over to Irfan, let's go over some housekeeping and then I will hand it over to him. So, in the housekeeping, of course, the recording and the slides will be available to you after the event. Um, Please use the questions panel to add comments. Ask your questions as much as you want to. Let's make this an interactive session. You don't want just me or Irfan to keep talking. And you can always send the additional questions. I will try to pick up all the questions that you add to the comment section. I will ask them from Irfan. And if I miss out on maybe one or two, I apologize for that in advance. But you can also send your questions to learning@devopsagileskills.org. So, with that, I would like to welcome Irfan and I would like to welcome all of you into this session today.
Yeah, thank
Next
you
slide.
there, Eliza.
Thank
Appreciate that segue into the main portion of this webinar. The key message I'd like to take away, I'd like you folks on this webinar to take away is this. It's to understand the possibilities as well as the perils of the digital age and how the DevOps Leader Program can help you navigate the digital age and seize its opportunities and their boundless opportunities while avoiding the threats, both at a personal level and an organizational level. And that is my key message for today's webinar. And we begin with trying to ask some fundamental questions around what is transformational leadership. And I think we have a snippet here that illustrates what transformational leadership is. It's about seizing the opportunities, the boundless opportunities of the digital age, and helping organizations innovate at speed and scale to to grow as a business and to offer new and innovative products to enhance economic value and create societal wealth. Uh, but before we get into sort of the details around how to become a transformational leader, I think it's good to relook at the fundamentals. Sometimes, it's really important to have clarity in thinking because that leads to clarity in action and in execution. And because DevOps and Agile have evolved over a course of time, there are myriad definitions of what they mean. So,
So I was in the leader program just
well,
recently, Irfan, and I'm so glad that you're actually starting this event with such a basic topic and going back to the fundamentals. During the program, from all the learners, I believe we were asked that, what is the definition of DevOps? And these were all leaders within the program, to be very honest. And their definitions were like, some were more technologically inclined, some were more towards culture and mindset. Some said that, hey, this is like two teams working together, the dev team, the ops team. And I'm not saying that any of these answers were wrong, to be very honest, but I want to hear from you. What would you like to say about this? What is DevOps?
yeah. And I've listed some of the things that are popular definitions and sometimes misconceptions about what DevOps is. I don't know if the audience has a favorite DevOps definition. If they have one, they can put it in the chat so we can share that as well. But usually it's confused with renaming an existing team and calling it the DevOps team. Or if you're doing CI/CD, then you claim, or typically people claim they're doing DevOps. So when we have sort of more structured collaboration with Dev and Ops, is that what it means to be doing DevOps? Uh, it is. We take a more expansive view of DevOps as DASA, as a global body, as an industry body that promotes agile and DevOps way of working. So for DASA defines DevOps as a cultural and an operational model that fosters collaboration across the enterprise and within the IT organization to enable high performance IT, that is the technology organization, to help drive and achieve business goals. And this is an important definition and an over all encompassing definition that talks to the centrality of technology in today's digital age. IT has moved from being a support function to being central to organizational success. And it is no longer enough if you have a few Scrum teams doing agile and and be and say that you're prepared for the digital age to seize its opportunities. It requires a wholesale sort of transformation of the technology organization to make it central to business success. And that is what defines DevOps as. It is that entire IT organization becoming uh, central to an organization, and technology powering the business, and technology and business working in unison to drive business goals through technology and software. So, with that sort of segue, and Eliza, before we get into the next slide, does that resonate with you? Because you're the only person right now visible here. But if folks, other than you, if folks on the bridge or the webinar have further clarifications, please feel free to chime in. But that is the all-encompassing DASA definition of DevOps.
Well, Prasad has shown his viewpoint as well that DevOps is a culture.
Mhm. Yes, DevOps is certainly a culture. It's an aspect of DevOps, but DevOps is beyond culture to actually enable that culture to drive the right type of business outcomes. It is about that culture of collaboration. It is the culture about being customer focused. It's culture about using technology to achieve business outcomes. So yes, Prasad, it is culture, but culture in a broader sense to drive business outcomes through uh, technology and software powered products and services. With that, uh, the sort of essence of a DevOps transformation is this: you want to build a high performing digital organization. And there are good reasons, and we'll get into why we need to build a high performing digital organization. And I touched briefly on some of that because of the centrality of technology, and because increasingly most businesses are mediate through their or mediate through technology means, um, whether it's taxi services where we saw Uber and an app disrupt an entire technology, entire industry, or whether it's Tinseltown with Netflix disrupting uh, the movie industry and the media business. So I think all organizations are realizing that they have to become very proficient, very capable at using technology means to run the business. And that is the aim of a DevOps transformation, is to help you build those capabilities uh, organization wide so that you can use that capability to drive a high performing digital business and a digital organization. So moving on to the next slide here, folks. Uh, so I think it's, and this is based on Sinek's book, right? Start with the why. And I think it's really important to begin with the why because it helps us define the purpose. It helps us develop the right mindset and about why we are doing something. So the question we want to ask is, why do you need to build a high performing digital organization? And the reasons are twofold. One is, and this is where we are living in a digitally disrupted VUCA world. And I spoke to you briefly about how, for instance, Uber disrupted the taxi industry, or Netflix introduced a new way of consuming media, And there are myriad cases of how technology has created new products, new services, new businesses based on software. And this uh, graph here, the side by side illustration of the the companies that were prominent in 2009 here, and the companies in 2019. It's like a 10-year gap, and you see the difference that is happening. Companies in the previous decade were companies that were focused on uh, physical goods and services. You see the petrochemicals industries, and you see a bunch of banking industries there in that the left side of the illustration. And when you focus on the right side of this slide, you will see what has happened in a decade. In decade, you have had the sort of digital innovators, the digital disruptors, and the native companies who use their sort of capability and competency in delivering software-based products and businesses to disrupt entire industries and to create new services and new wealth, essentially, which wasn't there. So it's not exactly a, a gloom and doom story about digital disruption. I mean, there is a way to handle digital disruption. And I think Dr. Mick Kirsten, in his book Project to Product, illustrates that well. The reasons why these companies, these digital native companies, have been able to disrupt existing business is because they have this capability of doing software at scale. And they are able to learn new businesses faster than existing businesses can learn how to do software at scale, which is a segue into my next slide, which is,
Before you move into
yeah,
the next slide,
certainly,
Irfan, I wanted to ask a question. I
sure,
want to go back maybe a couple
certainly,
slides, or maybe even the last slide, even. When
okay,
you look towards the right hand side and the left hand side, right, towards the left, you had your physical goods and services, China, petrochem, and so on and so forth. And now it is towards the right, you see a lot of technology industries coming in: Amazon, Apple, Microsoft. What if someone is not from a digital organization? Even though in today's day and age, I don't know of an organization that does not have an IT team or does not have a website. They are digital up to an extent. But I want to understand that what are the components of a digital organization? I mean, think of DASA. Is DASA a digital organization?
yeah, and we can certainly, I can address that. I think and I touched on that briefly here, right? And that's where I want to, and that's kind of a good segue into the conversation we want to have around the question you posed. For instance, if you look at what are the components of becoming a digital organization, and I think we have to understand the shift in technology ages, and that is the sort of profound insight that came out of uh, the Brook Project to Product, where, based on the work that was done by an economist earlier who studied the evolution of ages, we have we have transitioned or in the process of a transition from the industrial age to the age of software and digital. In the industrial age, the means of production was mastering mass production. So if you were really good at producing a widget and you were able to produce that widget at scale,
Mhm.
your means of success was guaranteed. I mean, the example that Ford had in mind, you can have any car as long as it's black. That kind of illustrated the mindset that uh, the industrial age approached uh, the creation of organization and the creation of and mass production as the means of delivering value. In the digital age, and I think this has been called out, is uh, is mastering software delivery at speed and scale. Because if you, to your question, Eliza, whether you're not a digital company, I get it, but the digital companies are learning your business and using that capability that they have to deliver software at speed and scale to disrupt new business, to disrupt your business. So, for
I
instance,
see.
Amazon is now getting into healthcare. Amazon is not a healthcare company, but it uses its capability as a master in software products to to use that to mediate healthcare services. So that is just one example of how um, acute the challenge is. And the challenge for incumbent industries is to master this new means of production. And that is what DevOps transformation is. So we talked a little bit about IT moving from a support role to being central to the business, and IT behaving like it's supporting a digital organization where the majority of the business, the majority of the interaction with your customers, your business model is now mediated through technology. So either you are sleepwalking into becoming a digital organization, which has unpredictable consequences, or you're doing it deliberately. And the purpose of the DevOps Leader program is to prepare leaders to look at this as a problem that is a bounded problem that can be solved by building your capabilities around a technology based business.
You
I hope
have
I
a question
addressed
from
that.
the audience.
Yeah, by all
Sorry.
means.
What is the main goal of DevOps?
The main goal of DevOps is to deliver business outcomes through software based products and business models. So that is DevOps is not about doing DevOps for the sake of doing DevOps. DevOps is not agile on steroids. DevOps is not a tool set. DevOps is very practical and very goal oriented. It is how to help companies, incumbent companies, to master the art and science of delivering software-based products and services, and use that sort of capability to become digital innovators and stop playing digital defense. You need to start building that capability and actually play digital offense. And that you're seeing in a lot of industries as well. Now, Walmart made that sort of explicit transition to becoming a more of a digital player, where it is competing with Amazon in the retail space. And a lot of other retail companies have embraced this. And they're leveraging both their capabilities and the business knowledge and the data that they have to play on a level playing field with innovators. So I hope, Prasad, that answers your question. But summarizing, DevOps is about delivering business outcomes through technology and software-based products and business models.
Thank you, Irfan. The question was from Srinjoy, but I know you cannot see questions. Sorry, Srinjoy. But
All right.
Prasad, you got the answer too.
I
Let's
hope that
move
worked,
on.
Joy. Thank you. All right. So again, just dwelling a little bit more on this, I think it's an important slide to understand how critical software is as a means of production, as a means of delivering new value, creating new opportunities and new growth. Moving on to the next slide then. Oh, I'm sorry, the slide seems to be stuck here, but I think I got it here. Okay. And again, this kind of summarizes what we just talked about. And this was the realization of Peter Jacobs, and it says there, the CIO of ING. ING is a Dutch bank, and this, in a nutshell, illustrates the challenge facing companies and the mindset we need to approach our digital and DevOps transformation. I'll pause for a bit and let you absorb this because I think it's an important concept.
It is definitely an important concept. I remember reading about Ford, where they said that we are not an automotive company anymore. We're an IT company. Maybe not exactly those same words, not verbatim, but they said
Mhm.
something like that. Yep.
And I think that is a realization that people are having about how central technology and software is to modern business, which were considered, you know, separate from technology, or technology was peripheral to the business. As you mentioned with Ford and the automotive industry, the car has moved from being a mechanical product to a computer on wheels, and it's moved from being a physical product to eventually to a service that a mobility service that you can call on demand. So that's what the possibilities of technology are. And I think people are realizing that. And this quote from um, uh, the ING person illustrates that you're not in the business you think you are. You are, in a sense, a technology company that happens to be in a particular business and using technology as a means of conducting this business. And that is the way the future is going to roll out. And we are seeing it both, as I gave the example of healthcare. Healthcare has been away is an industry that has been around for the longest time. The same goes applies to government services. Most of them are mediated through technology and software and digital interfaces. All right. So with that in mind, with that sort of context, so why do we need a new generation of leaders, which is what the crux of the issue is, and that is what the DevOps Leader program is focused on. Um, and I think when we talked about that earlier, Eliza, you had some interesting commentary on that about what a new generation of leaders is. Is this the millennials or the Generation Z, or is it the people who are just familiar with cloud and DevOps and Agile? Are they the new generation of leaders?
Yeah,
So,
because I wanted to be able to understand when you talk about new generation of leaders, Irfan, you have 25 years of
mhm.
experience. You've been a leader, you know. But when you speak about this new generation of leaders, all of the people that I come across,
I lost your mic. I can't hear you anymore.
oh, completely my fault. It is entirely my fault. So, some people, when I talk to some people, they're learning artificial intelligence. Some people are doing machine learning. Some people are doing cloud computing. People
Mhm.
are getting into Jenkins, puppets, God knows what not. Are these the kind of new leaders that you're talking about, that they should be very technologically savvy per se? Or are you talking about also the leaders who've been in the industry? When talking about you, let's talk about you. You've been
Yeah,
here 25 years, right?
correct.
You've been there. You
Yeah.
have done that. So, what are
Mhm.
you saying to the new generation that's just coming in? And then let's go back to the millennials, such as you and me. And what is it that they need? They need upskilling, reskilling, next skilling. What is it when you say that you want a new generation of leaders?
I think, and that's a good sort of segue into, and just recalling from a previous side, I think the new generation of leaders realize very sort of explicitly and deliberately that we are working in the age of the digital age and the age of software. And what worked in the past, the industrial age, the leadership style, the management practices, to a great extent, are not applicable directly in the way we manage technology-based business. The new generation of leader begins with that acknowledgement, and is always in a continual process of mastering both the technology and the technology enabled business aspects of business to to support the transformations of companies. So for me, in the new generation of leader can be at any stage in the career, um, and it can be coming from a deep technology background, can be coming from a deep business background. But I think the sweet spot is to combine um, the technology and the business aspects and bring it to bear to solve problems and drive outcomes uh, through technology and software. Because as we talked about earlier, that is the means of production. That is the means of creating new value, new businesses, new wealth in the society. So we talked about that. And I think one of the sort of opportunities that this offers for leaders or potential leaders or aspiring leaders, as you correctly said, is that organizations at the board level or the CEO level realize that we are in the digital age. And you can see by the numbers here, they're pouring in money into digital transformation. And the numbers are staggering. And as you can see, Microsoft CEO made the statement that you're lucky to be in an industry where it's doubling in 10 years. It's very rarely happens. So that is the size of opportunity for people who aspire to become leaders, who aspire to lead organization through agile and DevOps way of working to transform themselves to become high performing this digital organization. People are making investments in technology, but that's just not enough. New ways of working, new ways of leadership, new ways of managing, new cultures, new ways of of uh, of working with each other, collaborating, uh, and leadership that is devolved versus concentrated. All the factors and and that is the sort of aim of the DevOps Leader program is to prepare you to be a confident digital age leader. And that is where the sad sort of reality is. And despite all these investments being made and 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 the amount of enormous amount of money that is being funneled into transformations, the numbers up here illustrate the number of failures or what are transformations that don't achieve business goals. And as you can see, there's an enormous amount of economic waste that is going on, and an opportunity to create new wealth and new value is being lost. So to sum it up, we we need a new generation of leaders, and this is why we need them. We need them to help reduce the economic waste, because I think that is a colossal failure of the system if we continue to waste that much amount of uh, wealth and money, and to create new value, because the digital age and the technology offers new possibilities that never existed before. Both at a personal level and an organizational level, you have an opportunity to create enormous success for both individuals and organizations. And DevOps is a means and a way of building a high performing digital organization. DevOps is not an end in itself. DevOps is the means to do something and build an organization that can play on a level playing field in the digital age. It does that by helping uh, organization master the competency that the digital innovators and the digital disruptors already have mastered. That is software delivery at speed and scale, and to use that to build innovative software-based digital products and new business models. And we are seeing that evolution happen constantly. Um, and you saw this, the latest sort of thing with an incumbent like Walt Disney started a streaming service. And that illustrates what the power of DevOps is. And that is sort of the goals that a DevOps transformation achieves. It helps level the playing field, and it helps people and organization master the new means of production of the digital age, which is software.
Now, while you were talking about these new generation of leaders, Irfan, I want to call you out on one thing.
Mhm.
You know, you're very selective about this program, right?
Correct.
Uh, you don't let anybody and everybody come into this 8 week program. We need a new generation of leaders. McKinsey says it, Forbes says it, everybody says it. We want to have that. I want to be able to understand why such a selective process. What is the reason behind that?
Yeah. And I think we just go back to the sort of thing that we spoke about earlier, Eliza. It is just not the sort of hard skills that you bring to the table. It is the mindset and the approach that you bring, and the sort of passion you have for the possibilities of the digital age. And we want people who bring that sort of excitement and that uh, approach, the positive approach about how you can leverage technology and drive business value. So the program is not aimed at people who let's say insist on um, uh, uh, industrial age sort of approach to working, or a mindset that is fixed. We want people to be excited about what technology and DevOps transformation enables you to do. Because at the end of the day, we want to go have people go back to their organizations, whether they are consultants, whether they are uh, within large enterprises or any sort of enterprise, to make a difference and increase the success rate of digital transformations, and essentially help move from being threatened by digital technology to actually embracing it and driving new businesses. So we're looking for a very forward-looking cohort of people who can, embrace both the possibilities and perils of the digital age.
Yes,
So,
because when we run these programs and sometimes we get into the process of interviewing people, they
mhm,
have this question, why so selective?
yeah,
There is a comment, by the way, which I'm actually going to turn into a question. Shikhar is saying that he agrees with the evolution. He agrees that the evolution happens in software industry, and you cannot imagine a software success without DevOps. DevOps has been in existence for, let's say, 10 years. I mean, I'm going to go back to Luca's webinar that happened yesterday. Please watch it. It has been there for ages, and I understand that. But is it true to say that software, is it true that you cannot imagine software success without DevOps? There's so many different frameworks. There's Lean, there's Scrum, Safe. There's just so many. Why are we saying that software success cannot happen without DevOps? I want to be clear on that.
and yes, and that goes back to Dasa's definition of DevOps, right? It is a cultural and operating model for high performance IT. Uh, all of these things that you mentioned about Scrum or Safe or some of the frameworks address fragments of a value stream, fragments of a delivery model. We take a very holistic approach, and that is where the community, the DevOps community, is evolving. And you find this acronym about biz DevOps, that is integration of business with DevOps. I mean,
Yes.
we have essentially translated that into deliberate learning and guidance that can help you become a biz DevOps organization.
Hmm.
So to the point, yes, software is integral to any business, and you can't imagine doing software at scale and software at speed without a DevOps operating model, without the DevOps culture, where the entire organization is working with the business, the IT organization is working in unison with the business to use technology to drive business outcomes. Because end of the day, we are not doing technology for technology's sake. We're not doing DevOps or Agile for their own sake. We are doing it to drive some hard outcomes and to help businesses succeed. And I kind of want to move on to talking a little bit about what it means at a personal level, right? Because we've talked about digital disruption at a very organizational level and a
Right.
high level, but I think the same applies to individuals, right? Every career is going through some sort of transformation. Um, you can say we all our careers are being digitally disrupted, uh, and I think it's time to sort of take a step back and see, uh, do a sort of analysis of what the opportunities and threats are with the digital age, and that's kind of what I have here as my uh, illustration of both the threats and the opportunities. And we'll talk a little bit about the next slide where we talk about some of the roles which we mentioned, Eliza. We hadn't uh, some of the roles that we are hearing about these days, which are prevalent and very common: product owners, scrum masters, change agents, are all relatively new roles. So I think they're existing roles that need to understand that the way of working is changing and need
Hmm.
to embrace that uh, in order not to get digitally disrupted. But I think looking at the more positive side for folks, because this field is evolving and is rapidly changing and it continues to evolve, the age of digital and software offers enormous opportunity for individuals. People who can bring both the business savvy and the technology savvy to the table are going to be immensely successful. And that is what the purpose of the DevOps leader program is. If you're a technology leader or aspiring, that's where your background is, we help you get the business savvy so that you can use the power of technology to drive business. And if you're a business leader that is very familiar with the way business is conducted today, we will help you make the transition to imagine a future where technology enables that business, and imagine your products and services that uh, can be made possible with technology. So I think, in a nutshell, if you do a personal analysis of where you stand in your career path, whether you're a coach, whether you are a team lead, or whether you are in some of the classic roles, uh, or where, well, like a project manager, uh, or a program manager, all these roles are evolving. So I think we help you make that sort of transition into what the new way of working requires. And I think we talked a little bit about this, Eliza, and this kind of illustrates to your point, to the discussion we had earlier about who becomes a DevOps leader. And
Right.
because the nature of leadership has changed, leadership is no longer concentrated at the top, and it's not something that are is based on dictates issued at the top and people executing tasks. It's about devolving leadership to where people have the most information to make decisions. It
Mhm.
involves giving teams autonomy, but ensuring the teams are aligned so that they are aligned to the strategic goals of the company. So it's a much more complex world, and people who can grapple with this complexity and be successful is the type of successful DevOps leader, because the industrial age was a much simpler age. You had silos, you did your task, you're done, and you were measured against this. Now you things are getting a little more complicated. We have work moving from individuals to team, and how these teams work together in teams of teams and deliver results is a complex and a challenging task. And that's where we want people to be excited about this, and look at some of the opportunities that this age is presenting, and be prepared to leverage those and seize those opportunities.
So ideally, the roles that we see over here on this slide, I
Mhm.
believe there are 10 or 11 of them.
Correct.
Uh, to expand upon this, Irfan, I want to be able to understand another thing. I think what you are talking about is based on formal and informal leadership. Is that
Mhm.
correct?
True.
At one place, I am the CIO, CTO, IT director, or somebody, then that's my formal leadership. And then there are informal roles in leadership, and they are welcome into the course as well. Can you elaborate on that a little bit as to, okay, if I was to take this course, well, I have, but let's say if somebody wanted to take this course, um, what are they looking at? What should I be doing at my job that I would be a perfect fit for this course? Because this course is selective, I will be in the same room with people such as yourself, Irfan. um, how can I assess myself through my personal SWOT? What kind of questions should I be asking myself to see that if I can become a DevOps leader or not?
Right. And I think you touched on 2 points. The formal sort of leader with the budget authorities, with the funding sort of abilities. I mean, they are the people who initiate transformation programs and initiatives, and it's important for them to understand holistically what this is driving. It's not IT for the sake of IT. It's IT for the sake of business outcomes, and that is kind of one of the roles that we have in the person of a person taking this course. And they are the sort of informal leaders who have insight into technology. Like I'm just giving it. They might be developers and have deep insight into a certain technology stack, which which can help propel the organization's ability to innovate. If you look at it, it's the classic sort of uh, leader as the all-knowing person is no longer applicable. It's people who have the right sort of skills and knowledge, who inform the leadership on how to drive business and strategy. So, in the case of informal leaders, we have team leads and we have people taking ownership of end-to-end delivery of the product. So the entire process of how we execute is now getting dispersed from being centralized. So the program requires obviously people who have formal authority and have the experience to do that, but people who are in the field and who are at the ground level, who understand deeply about the technology possibilities, are passionate about it, who bring the right mindset and approach, are welcome as participants in the program. So, today's sort of leadership is very different from a very formal sort of leadership that came from in that existed in the previous age. So while we are selective, we are not dismissive. So we want to make sure that people enjoy uh, the opportunity to grow and essentially seize the opportunities because I think they're boundless. And we try to have that sort of positive conversation of what's possible. All right.
Definitely. Be lax, not too lax, but will be lax.
It's not, yeah, and I think we want to prepare generation of leaders who bring both technology and business savvy to help drive business outcomes, to reduce the economic waste, to make things successful, and to help seize some of the opportunities. I think if you look at the new, there's a saying that the geeks run the world, and to an extent, if you look at all the technology companies, it's the previous geeks who are currently running it. So the technology, the difference between like the technology leader and the business leader is getting diluted. It's becoming all encompassing. You have to have some understanding of technology to succeed, and you have to have as a deep technology person, you have to understand the business to make yourself more valuable. And that's this sort of sweet spot we want to um, help people get and evolve. And just doing a quick time check, I think we are running into the top of the hour soon. So we want to spend some time and we to just go through briefly about the DevOps leader program. But before we do that, Eliza, are there any further questions or any comments there?
Um, Shikhar has some more comments, but I believe that they were talking to Srinjoy. You
Okay,
can carry on.
all right, fantastic. Okay, so folks, I think I'm just looking at this. Okay, all right. Um, Moving on then to the quick overview of the DevOps Leader program. First of all, this is not uh, me teaching or somebody else teaching you how to become a DevOps leader. It's about you learning. So this is, I think it's not exactly flipped learning, but it is a way where you have to do anything tough and do anything challenging. We all have to put the sweat equity into it, and this is about doing that. It's learning by doing, as Eliza mentioned. It's a robust 8 week sort of program that helps you not only learn by the classic ways of lectures and conversations, lectures, but through conversations and through pre-readings and understanding some of these concepts and the background that affects these new ways of working, and as a team, as a cohort of learners, reflecting upon that and internalizing those concepts. So when you go out into your organizations in capacities as a consultant or as a team member, you are ready to hit the ground learning. So these are not theoretical sort of concepts. These go beyond that theory to help you internalize it through a process of active learning. And this is where we draw inspiration from to this, and the left sort of illustrates where we are with this. Sorry, I think I skipped ahead. Um, and the McKinsey model has been fairly prevalent in the industry as companies embrace and become digital organization, as they embrace technology and become digital organization. And it has this sort of five sort of pillars associated with that, starting with the strategy and the vision, and then you have the organizational structure that leads to building uh, the sort of from a siloed model to a team of teams, and then you have a process and a governance mechanism to ensure this autonomy and alignment. And then there is the people skilling both the sort of technical skills as well as the human skills. And underpinning all that is the technology aspect of the new modern business. So DASA's program essentially takes that essence of what the McKinsey model has to offer and makes a deliberate sort of a structured approach to how you can um, learn these transformations skills and become the next generation of transformation leaders uh, through a 8 week sort of robust learning exercise. And we began the first week with what, and we talked a little bit about this and DevOps and how it plays into building a high performing digital organization and some of the context in the background. And we dwelled on that a little bit, but why it's important to understand both the possibilities and the perils of the digital age, and how DevOps has evolved from just Dev and Ops to now an all-encompassing Biz DevOps, and the central role of leadership, both formal leaders and informal leaders. And that is what the first week will be focused on. Uh, Moving on to the next week, we will be tackling leadership. So there's a saying by I think it attributed to Tolstoy, where he said, "We everybody wants to change the world, but nobody wants to change themselves." So I think it's kind of uh, important point to reflect upon. We all want to change the world, but we refuse to change ourselves. That is our sort of tendency towards inertia, right? It's change is difficult, especially if it's changing yourself. But change is mandatory. It is as a mandatory ingredient to success in the digital age. So we'll have to give up what we have learned and cherished over the previous ages through the industrial age, and a mindset and an approach to ways of working, to embracing the new ways of working, where we have to deal with the uncertainty of giving up our formal authority, or we have to embrace authority now because now we are in a team that is responsible not only for the dev portion of it or the QA portion of it, but a team that is cross-functional that is responsible for driving business outcomes. So we have to be uncomfortable enough to understand that we don't know what we don't know, and we have to embrace that and learn that. And that is what is we cover off in module two, and how we can use the DASA sort of framework to assess where we are in our current leadership pattern and how it aligns with what is needed for success in this age.
You're taking me back 20 years. I remember all the different kinds of leadership models, and you were 20 years ago. There were so many different kind of leadership styles that we used to. They're probably still prevalent. I don't know.
Yeah.
Autocratic, bureaucratic, charismatic, innovative. All of these kind of leadership styles that we used to learn about back in school.
Mhm.
In this particular module, when you define the DevOps leadership, what type of leadership are you talking about at that point of time? Style of leadership that provoke into people when they come into the class.
Yeah, and I think that some of these models are outdated, and some of them are still prevalent, and some of them came in recently. Servant leadership is one thing that is used, very popular in the Scrum sort of world,
Yeah.
and and that is a leadership tribe style that is applicable, and we help people develop that leadership style and bring that sort of mindset to help people become better at what they're doing, and the leader as a servant. But the leader is much more than a servant. And it's not just driven by what enhancing the team's capabilities, but a transformation leader is enhancing those capabilities aligned to the vision of the organization. So I think that is the key sort of uh, takeaway and learning in terms of what are the most important uh, things that we focus on in terms of leadership. It is how to become a transformational leader so that you can use the power of people, their capacity to innovate, combined with technology to drive business outcomes. So that requires a transformation. That requires having a vision. That requires thinking on a system level, not at a local level. That requires collaboration, a culture of working together. That involves devolving leadership to where it makes sense. That involves building the sort of governance structures to manage the flow of value and manage the feedback from the business and the customers to constantly evolve these products. So transformational leadership and servant leadership, facilitative leadership, there are a lot of things that we go through in this program, but we zero in on transformational leadership because that's where the opportunity is. Uh, and just doing a quick time check, and we would like to leave some time if there are for any questions there. Um, we have, again, this is how you initiate a DevOps transformation. What is your North Star? What is your current state of your change climate? How do you introduce that sense of urgency? How do you build that overall context we talked about? Why this is imperative? This is not something that you have an option to do or not to do. If you don't do it, you know the consequences are digital disruption. If you do it, you become a digital innovator and a digital a player, and you create a compelling story around that. That is how you shape a DevOps transformation. Again, not DevOps for the sake of DevOps, but DevOps for succeeding in a digital age. And we talk about not prescribing how you do it, but creating the conditions for success. And these are some of the elements we focus on, about creating a high performance culture, about focusing on people. And I think as an industry organization, as body, Adasa has a whole sort of approach and academy for upskilling of individuals with the Talent Academy. And that complements uh, this sort of training and certification we have, as well as the guidance products we provide to help uh, work, help you succeed and work at different levels in an organization, at an individual level, at a team level, and an organization level. And the people and the cultural aspects that go with enabling that flow of work is what we cover off in module 4. um, and then we talk about process and governance in week 5. And that is a big shift, right? We have moved from the previous sort of world where software delivery was usually very project based, and we want to move into a world of continuous software where we are constantly deploying and software into operations and learning from that to drive our product development. So operations becomes a first class candidate in the new world, and it actually provides input into design. So that shift has to be made. And the thing that aids that is to move from a sort of project oriented delivery model to a product oriented model with persistent teams, with long lasting teams, with a value stream approach versus a very sort of temporary project based approach. And we talk about how we set up the process and governance models to enable what we talked about earlier, Elisa, about devolving autonomy but keeping the alignment. So
Correct.
that's what we'll cover. And architecture, technology, we've heard about the Conway's law. The technology begins to reflect how you are organized, your organization structure. So we want to kind of use the reverse Conway law and define teams and use new sort of thinking around this in terms of team topologies, in terms of a microservices architecture, so that we can build autonomous end-to-end teams that have end-to-end ownership of business outcomes. And that's what we'll cover off in week 6. and in week 7. And that's where I think the essence of all this boils down to, is how do you lead a successful transformation throughout this sort of 6 weeks of work. You would have been doing work to prepare your transformation plan. And that is what I meant by active learning. Not just sitting there and listening to lectures, but you are taking what you have learned, both in the pre-reading as well as what your context is, and to draft a transformation journey, um, and then using that to uh, drive a successful transformation in your own context. Because as I said, there is no one right way of doing becoming a high performing digital organization. You'll have to find the path. You have to create, as a leader, create the conditions for success. And with that, Eliza, I think we're coming at the top of the hour. And finally, we talk about putting it into action. We have a delivery and a presentation you do, and a process of assessing uh, your transformation plan. It goes back to uh, 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 leaders who have run these transformations, select folks of global leaders in transformation, and they evaluate and provide feedback to you. And so the journey continues. Talking about continuing the journey, so we understand that uh, uh, the journey of learning doesn't stop. And in terms of what happens after you are successfully gone through the program, is you continue the relationship with DASA. You contribute to increasing the knowledge of the community, knowledge of the DevOps and agile ways of working, by participating in working groups and building guidance products, or bringing something that you have that is valuable to you back to DASA, and we will evaluate how it can be integrated into some of the things that we have. And and just to give you a flavor of what some of the work that people who have done the previous sort of leader program have done, and have as products that they've created, is the digital readiness assessment. And this is people who passed the DevOps leader program and then went on and became part of working groups, who created a product that will help organization assess their readiness for digital transformation. There's a competency framework that folks have created that enables individual reskilling, upskilling, and the process of continuous learning. And you also become part of a larger community with the Enterprise Leader Forum and the coach community. But I think we have covered a lot of ground, folks. I'm 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 hopeful, and I'm confident that you're excited about the sort of promises here, notwithstanding the perils of the digital age. And I will pass it on to Eliza for a few words on the call to action here.
Well, I have a couple questions,
Sure.
and I'm going to say sorry to everybody for going over the time. Please allow us 2 more minutes. We won't take longer than that. So you have a compliment and a question from Subir. Subir says that you've given a great definition of new type of leadership for the digital era. But you didn't mention much about people or the softer dimension of the course, such as empathy, inclusion, equity, diversity. And he's also asking, what is your take on that?
Oh, it's a fantastic question. And I think some of that is deliberately not mentioned. And the way you build this sort of empathy and this uh, inclusion and diversity just not in the classic sort of politically correct diversity, but diversity in thinking, diversity in the way we approach problems. And we talked about that in how you bring the business point of view and the technology point of view together, and how you mold that into a product. Because at the end of the day, we want to create a psychological safe environment, and that happens through a whole lot of things and a whole set of practices that go with uh, with a new way of working. So, for instance, I think when we talk about this, these these softer elements of working are realized through the practices. For instance, if you look at how do we get teams to think about uh, delivering you uh, delivering an increment of value, right? Because we all very familiar with our roles. So the DevOps guy, the dev guys would uh, would would focus on the development aspect of the work, and they would be focused on a horizontal layer because that is the most efficient layer, and then they would pass it on to the QA folks. But when we flip that format and say we want to go to a user story and we want to deliver an increment of value, right, which is a vertical slice of value. So that kind of makes the practice of how we include uh, the different aspects, the softer side of working. Because when you're delivering an increment of value, you are embedding some practices into it. You're
Correct.
doing a small batch size, you're doing test driven development, you're conversing with your QA, you're shifting a lot of things to the left. So I think what we speak about and we emphasize is that culture, the change in culture happens through the practices that DevOps and new and Agile brings to the table, and it's a constant sort of evolution, and it's an absolutely fundamental part of the DevOps way of working, for sure.
Right.
I hope I've
I want,
addressed that little long-winded, but I'm passionate about that. But it shouldn't be treated in isolation. It is something that the practices support a culture. So, and that's where we want to bring diverse viewpoints and diverse ideas into the products we build, and have this psychologically safe culture.
yes, absolutely. You spoke a little bit about putting it into action, and I know you spoke a little bit about the assessment. I want you to do it maybe a little bit of justice by telling us your experience. This is not a quick cookie cutter exam, It's not 40 questions, not multiple choice questions, where most of the time C just might be the right answer. It's not that. I will not pass. When you did this assessment, I understand that you submitted a transformation plan, correct? What was your experience like throughout the course and while building this transformation plan? What was your takeaway from it when you came out of the course after having 25 years of experience as a leader? I want to know a little bit more about that. What was your experience like? What did you think that was your takeaway from this particular course?
Yeah, and the takeaway is that you learn things and you learn new sort of approaches to what are persistent problems and difficulties in a transformation. You learn both the softer side of transformation, how it's a very people driven transformation, and you understand both the sort of challenges people have and the support they need to make that transformation, and how to enable that. You learn that and you kind of internalize that. And then you understand also within your context how this applies, because every
Right,
context is different. And we
right,
start with where you currently are and how you can apply this new thinking and new ways of working within your context. So I think one of the other things that you get is an opportunity to reflect on your own leadership style and how that has to evolve uh, as you become a more of a transformational leader. Um, does that kind of help, Liza?
yes, it helps me a lot. Personally, me, it helps me a lot. Thank you so much, Irfan, for your time today. And
All right.
everybody, thank you again for staying a little bit longer. We're sorry we went over the time. But if you'd like to enroll into one of the DASA DevOps Leader courses, we have two upcoming. One, of course, being led by Irfan himself in the North American time zone starting October 11th. And then, if you are more comfortable with the European time zone, Ordina, Rick and Sebastian from Ordina are also conducting this course starting October 3rd. Now, considering we're close to the dates and both of these courses, they get filled up very fast. There's a whole process of interviewing, selection, and so on and so forth. I would say to, probably get onto it sooner than um, later. But again, I would like to thank you all for joining our webinar today, for joining our event today. If you have any questions at a later point of time, please send us an email, learning at devopsagileskills.org. The slides will, of course, be shared with you. You will have the emails, you will have the enroll links, and other things on the slides as well that you can probably refer to at a later point of time. Thank you again so much, Irfan. We made you speak a lot, asking a lot of questions. But hopefully, we're going to see you soon. And good luck for your course starting October 11th, Irfan.
Thank you. Excited to be part of this thing, folks. And in DevOps style, feedback is always welcome. If you want to have a continued conversations, let's connect on LinkedIn and we can chat further. But, flow, feedback, and continuous learning are the key. All right, folks. Thank you for your time. And thank you, Eliza, for hosting it.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Irfan.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone.